Thank you, everyone. My name is Patrick Burgoyne. I'm editor of Creative Review. So we've been asked to just talk for around 15 minutes about the subject of collaboration. It's quite a short presentation because we don't want to give too much away ahead of your appearance at the festival. It's been described to me earlier as an amuse-bouche, if you will. This is what this is all about. Anyway, we've been asked to talk about collaboration, and I think it's kind of hard to think of a more collaborative environment than putting a magazine together. And nowadays, when media brands exist in so many other platforms than print, whether that's video, social media, whatever it might be, it is a collaborative culture. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the differences you've seen in the nature of collaboration from those early days of starting Dazed, in terms of how you work now and all the different kind of factors that go into that. I mean, what kind of group did you have to put together when you were starting out?
Well, first I just want to say it's really great to be here, and thank you to D&AD for asking me to be one of the main speakers at the festival for next year. You know, I don't do a lot of it. I don't get out and do a lot of speaking. It's not my gig, but I like to do it occasionally for the right reasons, and it feels like, you know, the D&AD are doing so much to change and add value and quality to the creative industries that I felt it was really an important thing to be a part of. And, you know, I think the Shift program is really an excellent thing. So I just want to say congratulations to Harriet for her first year as the new president, and thanks for D&AD for having me. And yeah, you know, you're taking me that question takes me right back to the early 90s and to pretty much this part of London, which is where, you know, we were knocking around, and I was at the London College of Printing, and I met a gang of students, Rankin, Katie Grand, and we started on a student magazine. And, you know, I think that collaboration in those early days, from the early 90s, of making a fanzine that became a kind of magazine that, you know, we really made it up as we went along. But collaboration was really limited because we didn't know anyone, right? So, and this is, you know, trying to convince brands to collaborate with you was fucking impossible. I mean, I remember ringing up lots of people saying, "Hi, I'm from Dazed Confused," and they're like, "Haha, that's how I feel," you know. Yeah, you're limited by it. But, you know, what I learned in those early days, and what's important for me now, is that my collaboration was peer-to-peer, and it was really with artists. You know, I learned how to collaborate with brands much later on, once I'd kind of built a peer-to-peer value system around the idea of collaboration. But it's such a bad word, isn't it? Collaboration. It's like, to me, when people say collab, like, we live in a collab-infused culture, right? And it's like influencer. It's like content. It's like one of those words that just has a fucking bad ring about it.
I heard you ban the use of the word content, is that right?
Content is banned in my office. No one uses that word. No one uses that word, and it's so important because it makes you feel like what you're doing is a sort of unit. Not a unit. It makes it feel like it has no value. Yeah. You know, it makes it feel like it's just something it's just stuff. Yeah. So we call it story. We replace the word content with the word story. You know. So just do that. Yeah. You know.
I mean, collaboration is
stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have an emotional resonance usually. They don't have to be in that. They don't have to be linear. They can be abstract, but it's not content.
And I suppose collaboration is just putting the people together that you need to make those ideas that you're really excited about, right? So that you find the right people who can excite you and can get the job done, but also are going to add something to the process.
Definitely. You know, I think that putting people together is one form. You know, there's many types of collaboration, right? I think that media. It's funny when you sort of talk about how magazines are changing, right? It's like media doesn't want to call itself media, right? Publishing companies want to call themselves entertainment, right? Entertainment companies want to call themselves media. Like, nobody knows who the fuck they are or what they want to be. You know, when I'm working with photographers, graphic designers, and we're working with artists externally, like musicians or free, or talent, if you like. We're in a different type of conversation. For me, it's like the movie industry. We're a dream factory, and we're collaborating to make stories that will inspire and inform and educate, right? So that's the sort of way that I feel about my role at the moment, is to create the conditions that support that type of storytelling. And then, there's the collaborations with brands, which is a whole different thing, because I remember meeting this artist called Lawrence Viner, who's a really brilliant artist, and if people who don't know his work, check him out. He's also kind of looks a bit like a guru. He's got like an incredible beard, and he's very wise, and he talks in a very deep voice, and he rolls rollies with one hand with his eyes closed. And he has skills. And we were talking about collaboration, and he said it's a dirty word. He said, as an artist, to collaborate, he described it as the kind of word he went back to collaborator. He talked about this sort of idea of like, you're in cahoots, and he really despised it as a very pure artist, because someone has to have the power, right? Someone has to call the shots, right? Someone has to make the call at the end of the day, and you're as a collaborator, you're in the service of somebody, or they're in the service of you, but it's someone's playing field. And I think that's good. I think that can be a good thing. It's like if you're a musician and you're looking to collaborate with a video artist, where's the equality? Is it an equal collaboration, or are they in your service? Those boundaries need to get worked on. Need to get worked on. But when it's with brands, it's really, really awkward, because they don't think about it as a creative process. So when two artists get together to talk about collaboration, they don't always have an idea of what the outcome's going to be. They're on a journey. They might, when a brand comes to you to do a collaboration or a partnership or whatever, it's like, this is what we want. Let's collaborate. You're like, well, where's the collaboration in that, because we think about it in a different way. But you get used to it,
So do you get the sense that a lot of brands approach it and they just really want to buy in some cool, but they have no intention of really giving anything in return? Is it just almost a kind of badging exercise for them?
So I think they'd like to think that they were doing the right things. I think that, I think most of the brand partners I work with, there's brands and then there's the individuals at the brands, and most of the time I deal with people, right? And a lot of those people have, fairly, they have a value system that with an integrity, and they want to do the right thing. It's just that they don't understand what it takes to do that, and that's the difference. People think that it can be done through spreadsheets and through, project managers and other things. And of course, all those things are important tools, but, we don't want to be shaped by our tools. We don't want to be shaped by all the tools that are available to us. And I think that's really important. And we don't want it. We have to challenge and push back.
Are there any sectors or industries that do collaborations more successfully than others?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I kind of started with working with musicians. I think the early collaborations for Dazed and were very much about working with musicians, and I think that still the music industry is really, really forward-thinking about creative peer-to-peer collaboration. So you see it a lot in electronic music, you see it a lot in rap and hip-hop. You look at kind of artists like Travis Scott, who do incredible kind of work at kind of bringing collaborators into his Astro world, whether it's James Blake or, Tame Impala, etc. And that's really lifting people up and using pop to kind of push through art and different sounds. And, they're people who do it adventurously. I think in fashion, it started, Pierre Cardin started the idea of the kind of logo licensing in the 60s, right? So it's another form of collaboration,
Yeah.
you know, Off-White, like license my brand, but it's not really a collaboration because I'm not bringing any fucking creativity to it. But, you know, the real collaborations with art and fashion started with Marc Jacobs, probably, with in more recent times with like Vuitton. And Stephen Sprouse painting on that Vuitton bag was kind of a major moment in culture, you know, because it was a hijack, and it was the idea of taking a graffiti artist, an outsider, and giving him a position in pop culture of kind of respect and the values of that, and playing that game. I think that Virgil's a really good collaborator. I think he's an amazing person at bringing a new language around collaboration, and I think he is underrated. I think he's often used as a target, but I think sort of in fashion, I think Supreme and Vuitton, that collaboration, it was the last fireworks of the party in a way. You know, I look at something like Pharrell and Chanel, and he's making people buy trainers for £15,000, and I think, fuck you, that's shit, fuck off. You're a joke. A Chanel logo on the back of a hoodie, you're a fucking joke. Go do something real with your time. You know, how much are you getting paid? Fuck off. I probably wouldn't say that to him if he was right here. I might change my language, but, you know, it ain't cool. It ain't contributing anything, but, you know, so, yeah, you know, I think there are many industries where collaborations are good and there's bad.
And in terms of the kind of pool of people that you work with, not just on Dazed, but on Nowness and across all the things that you do, I mean, it's in some ways with social media, it's never been easier for particularly young creative people to find an outlet for their work, to get themselves seen, whether they're posting to Instagram or whatever. And I just wonder how for you that's changed the landscape of people that you are able to work with, and whether you're hopeful that we're going to see a kind of more diverse range of people that end up contributing and find a path through to making a career for themselves in the creative industries.
So I think there's many layers to that question. You're a very intelligent man.
Oh,
so, yes, social media and the tools for networking, communicating and sharing ideas are delivering, on the one hand, you know, a confidence to allow new voices to express themselves. And we've seen that absolutely without parallel in, first of all, politically, and then creatively, in terms of how I've, you know, in terms of what's been shared in the culture. Getting that through to the creative industries is a whole nother story, right? Because there are barriers to entry for industry, right? That's that. So editorially, the voices are strong, you know, and the diversity is incredibly inspiring to see. But do those people get work? Mm. You know, do they get the ad campaigns? Do they get, do they get the Hollywood movie deal? Those barriers to entry that's the problem, right? So underneath, there's this incredible desire for change, and especially amongst the communities that I see, you know, expressing themselves. You know, we have this new platform that we launched called Dazed Beauty, and we have a Dazed Beauty community. And I am absolutely blown away by the gender and identity politics that I'm seeing being expressed, and the amount of radical thought and conversation that those young people from all over the world are having when it comes to expressing their idea of how to represent themselves. And they do not want to be defined by the societal norms. They do not want to be defined or judged by other. They want to be able to self-identify and self-define their future, right? That gives me fucking goosebumps when that community, and there are a lot of them, and it's global, and it's a revolution, and there's no media for it, right? And there will be lots of media for it. There's a lot of social media for it. There's a lot of different groups out there, but there's no mainstream media for it, because the mainstream doesn't want to hear it. The mainstream's fucking scared of it. The mainstream doesn't, they want to push it down because it doesn't sell shit yet, right? So those kind of things are interesting. The other thing that's difficult about social media, particularly Facebook, which I think is, you know, a kind of a curse, really, probably responsible for breaking democracy. But I think, you know, because these tools are so powerful, so fucking powerful, and as we all know, so easily hackable, so easily manipulated. And they have a responsibility. They have a fucking responsibility to protect us and to protect our futures and protect our interests, and they're doing fuck all about it. And they need to be taken into account, because they don't want to lose money doing it. They pretend they do. They just put out really nice ad campaigns saying, we're all going to live more cozily together, you know, in the future, while at the same time, Brazil, look at what's happening. So, you know, without getting on a rant about it, I think that what social media does is it also creates a filter bubble for creativity, right? So you have more siloed groups of people who are collaborating with more like-minded people, but not collaborating outside of their set. Yeah. Which is why I think the reaction against that is more physical. You know, 'cause nightclubs were the laboratories of creative culture in the UK and globally. For me, that's how I met everybody. I met them everybody I ever worked with for the first 15 years of my career was through nightclubs. Because you just met people who blew you away, but you would never have met them if you weren't there, hanging out. And it was from all classes, all backgrounds, all kinds of, you know, that's why, you know, people look back at the hacienda. That's why people look back at, like, you know, in club culture as being so important now, because kids don't have it today in the same way as we had it. So they don't have that, they don't have all of that, you know.
Lacking that kind of serendipity in a sense, because by rights, social media ought to be able to do that, but as you say, it feels like it's actually just...
I think there's a bit of both. There's a bit of both. But anyway, let's lighten it up. Let's go and funny questions.
We're nearly out of time.
One entertaining question.
We're going to give too much away. But let's just finish on I mean, you and Rankin and the group of people you were with, you started Dazed in what, 90?
A very, very long time ago.
So, I mean, a lot of magazines, particularly in the sphere of kind of youth culture and so on, they have their moment, and the moment then is gone. Yeah. So how have you managed to keep going and keep relevant and keep fresh for such a long period of time? Well,
I don't really know is the answer. All I know is that I'm kind of done it. We never sold shares. We never had any investors, so that probably helped. And we got very lucky. And I think a little bit sort of, there are a few examples of people who've been around kind of as long as us, like Rough Trade Records maybe, as an example. Warp maybe is a kind of community or group or label, who've also had that same position in the culture of being kind of sort of mostly relevant most of the time. And I think also building new things, really, really important. So another magazine that allowed me to, for the generation who grew up in Dazed, to kind of graduate. Nowness allowed me to experiment with things that Dazed couldn't do, especially in video and in social media and kind of broadcasting. So I think adding those dimensions have really helped. And I think just, you know, the politics. You know, I think at the heart of it is we believe why we have a purpose. And I think that goes back to the story of collaboration, and it's really, if you collaborate with a sense of purpose, that you're going to make something meaningful. If you collaborate just to make money, you're going to make something like Pharrell and Chanel, right? Where it'll probably get a lot of press, it might win an award, but it's shit. It's just more junk, it's just more pollution, it's just more, you know, stuff that we don't need. We don't need more stuff, you know, we really don't need more stuff. We need good, we need quality, we need, you know, to be inspired and to be delighted, but, you know, we need to be lifted out of this, you know, out of ourselves. And I think collaboration has to have purpose. We have to have a feeling of a sense of purpose through the media, through the advertising, the photography that we come in contact with. So the politics have really been the mainstay of it. There you go.
Better stop. Giving too much away.
I didn't tell my story about when I went to meet Hugh Hefner.
Oh yeah, tell the Hugh Hefner story. Go on. Go on. Go on, quick.
All right, no, just really quick. We were talking about all the different publishers that I've met, and he asked me, like, you know, who. I said, I meet a lot of young magazines. He said, oh, who's your favorite publisher that you met? And I've said Hugh Hefner, right? So it was about 10 years ago. I've always really, you know, I thought Playboy was an amazing magazine, right? The 60s. In the 70s, it went to shit. He's a bit like the Elvis of publishing, right? There was a sort of golden period where he defined the future, and then he kind of had a Las Vegas period where it was really, really horrible and scary. And but at the beginning, it was the first kind of magazine made by somebody who was the personification of the magazine, right? He was the best at branding. And he was this was somebody who really respected art and culture. So he had amazing literature, amazing art, and it was a very forward-thinking magazine in the early days. So I had a lot of respect for him as a creator. And I went to the Playboy Mansion, right? It was so surreal. It was what they call family night. Right? So, right? It wasn't one of them parties, right? I never went to one of them parties at the Playboy family night. So the two boys, who are now, one of them I think is the CEO of the company, he's not a boy anymore, but the two boys 10 years ago, maybe more, maybe 15 years ago, the two boys were watching TV, right? And they were having their TV dinner. They were sitting in these chairs with the TV dinner there, but the TV was like the biggest fucking cinema screen I've ever seen, right? So it was like they were having TV at like the Odeon Leicester Square, right? And I was like, whoa. And then he did a whole tour of like the mansion, which was kind of epic. And then he showed me his office where he lived, where he worked. And he still line edited the magazine. It was crazy. He still line edited it. So we're talking about that stuff. And then he showed me the Matisse, right? Right, and I was like, he was like, that's my Matisse, and I was like, cool. And he said, see that hole? And he goes, I said, yeah. He goes, and it was a tiny hole, like that big, in the middle of the Matisse painting, right? Multi-million-pound painting, right? And I said, yeah. Why is that hole there? And he goes, John Lennon put his cigarette butt out in the Matisse. I said, what do you mean? And he said, yeah, well, I was having a party. John Lennon was here. He was standing talking to me, and he took the cigarette out, and he just put it in the Matisse while he looked at me. And he goes, do you want to know what he said? And I said, no, what did he say? And he goes, it's worth more now. Anyway, I'm glad I could make you laugh, and it's really good to see you all. And I look forward to our chat at the festival.
Yeah. So if you would like to hear more like this, and why wouldn't you? Come along, more stories about publishers. Come to D&AD Festival in May. But it just leaves me to say, Jefferson, thank you so much, and please stay around, have a drink. Have more pork. Are there more pork buns? There must be more pork buns. Thank you for joining us.